Welcome, everybody, to the Grit Unleashed podcast, where we tackle today together so that tomorrow can be ours. I'm your host, Sarah, and I'm sitting here again. We are minus Nacho today, but we've got two wonderful guests here. We've got Jay and Dawn. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Super excited about this episode today. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about brotherhood and how things like brotherhood can span time, span distance. Anytime that you need to bring together each other, or anytime that anybody needs any support, you're always going to be there for each other. So, going to direct the first question. Let's do Dawn first. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Dawn. A little bit of your background and how brotherhood, what that word means to you.
Okay, so first off, my name is Don Turner. I did 21 years in the United States Marine Corps, primarily infantry my whole time, retired as a first sergeant. And then since then, my wife is active duty Air Force, a critical care nurse. So we switched roles. I do the stay at home stuff more so now. And then currently started a nonprofit ourselves for a lot of the similar stuff, mental health, veterans, combat vets specific, called Six Savage Souls Project. 3 of us are original Afghan vets from '01, and 3 were Afghan vets at HKIA that were also wounded there. So it's kind of what I do now. And brotherhood to me is, I think that word hits a little bit different for veterans than it does for, civilians. Not to bash on civilians or anything, brotherhood, sisterhood, whatever. But to me, it's, knowing that if I need something, if I need a pick me up, if I just need a chat or, help trying to find a friend, I know that my brothers, those people, those other veterans, especially that I've worked with, they're going to be there without hesitation, and they don't ask for anything in return usually. And to me, that's brotherhood. I think that extends beyond the word family as well.
Yeah, I really like that. It definitely extends beyond family because, your blood family is not just your family, especially in the military. You establish those connections that, it's almost like, this deeper form of bonding where you guys have been through these experiences and then you just continue those over time and
Trauma bonding.
trauma bonding. Yes. Trauma bonding. And those bonds are a different level. So Jay, go ahead and introduce yourself and again the same question. What brotherhood means to you?
Uh, I have a really weird background. I was an Army EOD tech for about 8 years, and then I got out and started contracting around the world doing private demining consulting, different humanitarian things, explosive ordnance risk awareness, and just generally trying to raise awareness for explosive hazards in different former conflict areas or current conflict areas. Then the collapse of Afghanistan happened, and I started working to try and help the guys we had worked alongside of in Afghanistan, the NMRG and the other bomb disposal technicians and other EOD techs that were Afghans who got left behind. And that's where I was introduced to Nacho and this entire community. That's really where I first started experiencing brotherhood, was seeing people who had no business, technically getting involved in these humanitarian efforts all coming together to just do the right thing regardless of, what Department of State told them or what a financial advisor said would be a really dumb idea. But these people just knew that it was the right thing to do, and they just jumped in wholeheartedly. And I think that showed me brotherhood for the real first time, as I had worked with people who were willing to die with me. But that's all fine and dandy when you're in the Army, but working with people who gave you a purpose to wake up and do something better. That was the actual true brotherhood there, and that's what I experienced in the NGO community.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
really love. Oh, sorry.
can
Go
I
ahead,
add a
Don.
little bit to what Jay said? Because I
Absolutely.
mean, because that's how I ended up getting to meet Jay and Nacho. Is that extension of trying to find somebody with limited resources and people going above and beyond, but not even knowing the individual to help each other. And I think that he hit it pretty a lot better than what I did, in my opinion, on because like he said, I experienced that it's been a different type of brotherhood since being out and some of the things that I've done than what it was being on active duty.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have had some pretty unique experiences that give a whole new definition to that word of brotherhood. So, speaking of brotherhood, one of the topics we want to talk about today is the backstory with you guys and Captain Grady Kurpasi. Jay, I'm gonna direct the question to you first this time. How did you first come to learn about Captain Kurpasi?
Uh, this one's wild. I had been as soon as the Ukraine-Russia conflict kicked off, I got involved over there on the EOD side of things. And started working really heavily with different Ukrainian organizations out there and had embedded with them to provide EOD training. I had done like actual demining with them. I was teaching them all of these actual EOD skills. So I had been out there for a couple months, embedding with these guys, and then Nacho reached out saying that there was a U.S. Marine veteran that had gone missing. Did anyone have a network that could help track him down? And I was just in a unique situation where I had been building the perfect network for that without realizing it. So that's how I got involved into it, was just Nacho reached out to me and just asked for a hand, and that was all it took because I knew that he would do the same if anything happened to me. So he just sent me a message, and then it got that whole ball rolling, and it was what, 2 years later now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow, that's pretty impressive. And Don, how did you get involved with into the backstory of Captain Grady Kurpasi?
Well, myself and Captain, myself and Grady, I was going to call him Grady. We can just call him Grady. Uh, we served together in the Marine Corps. We were sergeants together in 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, out in Ramadi. Did a little bit of time out there with each other and then came back. And he ended up going to college to he did the MESEP program, the enlisted officer program in the Marine Corps, and became a lieutenant. I ended up on recruiting duty, and then I ended up at 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines around 2012. And I hear I'm getting a lieutenant that I might have served with in 2-5, short little Asian guy, old as hell. And I was like, oh, I know who that is. And so he ended up becoming my platoon commander, and I was his first platoon sergeant after he became a lieutenant. And we served together in 2-4, and then just through that, we kept in touch throughout the years. He was at my retirement, and then I was talking to him as soon as he went to Ukraine. Myself and one of our old squad leaders was actively trying to get him some good radios to help him do what he was a part of out there at the time. And then he kind of just went missing. And that's so we were from the start talking to him as soon as he went over there. And then my buddy George ended up somehow or another getting in contact with Nacho. It kind of just went from there. A lot of different directions.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely hearing the story. I've heard it from multiple points of view now, and everybody's obviously got a different take on the story. So, um, Don, what would you say was the moment then that was kind of the moment where you realized that you had to reach into that brotherhood connection and trust that we'll call him Grady as well. That Grady was missing and that you needed this community to come together to find him?
I like immediately. I mean, I have this thing that I like to say. I was not to, when it comes to us as veterans, like we're the only ones that are really going to take care of each other. Not to sound like morbid, but everybody can pretend that they really care about us, but we're the ones that are really going to go above and beyond to make sure that the other is taken care of as best we can. It's kind of what drives us. I know it's doing what I did with Grady is what I was at probably a pretty dark place at my point since retiring, and it gave me something to do. It gave me a mission. It gave me purpose again that I was missing. That I think so many of us we don't know what that purpose is whenever we leave the service.
Yeah.
And it's trying to figure out what it is. Like, I think Nacho said on one of his previous podcasts that I listened to is don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I retired 3 years ago and I still don't know what I want to do. So that was something that gave me purpose. And then it turned into, starting a nonprofit as well to try and, extend that reach because there's not of, not enough of us doing enough for each other out there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And, being part of the military, you definitely form those bonds on, I mean, like this whole podcast is about, you form those bonds on a whole different level and more than just trauma bonding, I think. But just in general, because whenever say you PCS, you have everybody from the base, your sponsor, or whoever else is coming together to make sure that everybody gets settled or your kids get adapted into daycare or your pets are at the right veterinary clinic or even something as trivial as like where to get the best haircut, right? Like everybody comes together to formulate that community, that village. It's always corny whenever people say, "Oh, it takes a village," but no, it really does. Because none of us have, our blood family, our biological family there with us, regardless of what your past may be. So we need to establish that family somehow. And I think that's really what differentiates, like you say, veterans and active duty from civilian is because civilian people, they grow up around their family and the people they went to high school with. And for those that are with the military, we don't necessarily.
I think I look back and think about how many people I actually have any kind of relationship that I actually grew up with and went to high school. And I probably have like 3 people besides my blood relatives. So I'm closer to a lot of people in the military and people like Jay. I'm gotten real close with Jay and Nacho and others, and I've never even been able to shake Jay's hand for everything that he did, to help get Grady home yet. But, still I know that I can hit him up, anytime. Like if I need his help for something or I need his advice on something, I know he'll put some time aside when he has the ability to and help me out.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the foundations of brotherhood. So Jay, for you, what was one of those pivotal moments that you knew that you needed to step in and really enact that brotherhood connection to bring Grady home?
I mean, there were a lot of different moments in there where it was doing it just because it was the right thing to do. I mean, there were a lot of times during the whole search for Grady where it was incredibly frustrating. We had people who were in harm's way in Russian territory reporting on what we thought was Grady, and we have every reason to believe was Grady. And we had people doing that just out of the Brotherhood. They were doing that because, either Nacho had done something for someone near them with the UNCN, or I had done something with a family member or a friend of theirs doing like demining work for any of the Ukrainian organizations. And then these people were willing to be like, okay, yeah, that's enough to prove that you're a good person and this is worth it. I will go risk my actual life for this random American that I've never really met. And that was truly eye-opening and seeing what the Ukrainians we had involved in this were willing to do was what kind of gave me the drive to keep putting more into it. It's that, hey, if these people who have no skin in this whatsoever, are willing to go to so much risk, then it's the least we can do to keep pushing forward. So that was the biggest moment for me. It wasn't necessarily me realizing I needed to call the Brotherhood in. It was me seeing the Brotherhood come together, and that was the little boost I needed to keep pushing through it.
Yes, I think so. I know this is we want to keep language to the right perspective here, but I always have a thing that I used to always tell my Marines is just be a good mother effer, you know, be a good mother effer and act like an adult. You do those two things, you'll be successful at anything you want to accomplish. I was like, but you have to give a shit, you know, and if you don't care about the first two, it doesn't matter, you know. So they all work together, and you know, being just people know, like I mean, good people can sniff out bad people pretty easily, in my opinion. People that are in it for themselves, and we experienced that. I mean, we sniffed out bad players quite a few times during the process of trying to get Grady found and home.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's always easy to figure those people out um because they put a different amount of effort into it. With that, how did you guys, the two of you, Jay and Don, lean on each other during this experience? How did you guys begin working together? And Don, will direct this question at you first. How did you guys lean on each other to bring Grady home?
Uh, man, I'm gonna really say that I leaned on Jay and Nacho and so many others because you know I had here at my home, so I didn't have connections. Like they were my connections to those other source resources that allowed us to find information out and follow leads. And you know, I always say I'm just a crayon eating knuckle dragging infantry marine. You know, um, I have resources, but you know, they have resources that I probably wouldn't have been able to come up with as quickly to accomplish some of the things that we were able to accomplish in a matter of 2 3 weeks. I mean, we had pretty solid lead potentially where Grady was within, I think, May about a month and a half, and that was really, I mean, Jay, Nacho, a few other people that you know are out there that aren't going to be named just because what they do. And you know, I'll be forever grateful for them because they helped us accomplish something that you know I couldn't have done without them. So I'm not going to say that. Yeah, I leaned on them wholeheartedly, and I'll be forever grateful for everything that they did to get our brother home.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Jay, how about you? How did you lean on Don throughout this whole bringing Grady home?
Well, I mean, Don and George and all the other folks who were in the States with Grady's family and everyone, they did a huge part of the work as well because we would have to filter all of this crazy stuff we were hearing against, conflicting things we were hearing. And it was impossible to do without really having an in-depth understanding of who Grady was, what he was like, would this have been something he would do? So Grady's family and his closest friends and people like Don, they were having to deal with things that, it was easy for us having a degree of separation to hear, like the possible wounds that Grady had sustained and things like that, and different possibilities for the end of his life. It's obviously hard for anyone to hear things like that, but for Grady's family and his friends, like I said, people like Don, George, for them to just stand there and listen to those stories day in and day out over and over again. Like I can't imagine the mental toll that would take on them. But they all were happy to do it if it meant that it would help figure out what happened. And that was incredible to see because it was hard for us to hear those things. I can't imagine hearing those things about someone I served 10, 12 years with and knew so well. So I can't imagine the emotional toll it took on them. And that was how they helped us so much.
Yeah, and so speaking of emotional toll, what kind of emotional toll did the whole situation take on you? Josh, that question will be directed to you first. This whole situation and what kind of things emotionally did you experience, mentally did you experience, and how did you overcome some of those obstacles?
Um, that's actually a really hard one for me to answer. Would you mind passing that one to Don real fast so then I can think about it?
Yeah, sure. If you
Thank
got to
you.
see in a minute, that's totally okay. Don, for you, what kind of emotional experiences, emotional and mental experiences, did you go through this whole process of once you learned that Grady was missing and then all the way to recovery? What kind of things did you experience and what did you use to help overcome those?
One of the biggest things I experienced that it's stupid. I know it's stupid.
No, it's not stupid. Whatever it is, I know it's not.
Jay will know it's a stupid thing, but it's who we are is guilt. I had a lot of guilt because he had asked me if I could come over and be his platoon sergeant because he had just lost his platoon sergeant about a week or so before, and then it was sorry, don't mind the clock in the background. It was it was about 2 weeks later. Um, he went missing. So the first thing, the most was definitely that's been the hardest thing. Was the guilt aspect. Like I said, it's stupid because me going over there would have changed nothing. So but at the same time, I've always believed everything happens for a reason. So whatever good or bad that's put in place in front of us, it's an obstacle for us to overcome in one manner, shape, or form or fashion, whether it be emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever. And it's how you decide to navigate it. So for me, I did what most of us do is I compartmentalized most everything and I just stuffed it in a sack and I just kept it where it needed to be because I had a job to do, and my job was to not be emotional about any of it because emotions drive decisions, and you can't have emotions drive decisions in a situation such as this was with all the different information, all the different stories, and all the different people that we were having to talk to on a daily basis, day in and day out. My phone probably wouldn't go off at any time of the day for every day for about 5 months probably. And you got to be able to talk to the people that are in Ukraine or somewhere else, and their time is not the same time as ours. So you better answer because that could be time pressing, for it to get next up level or whatever. But once we knew he was home, I think that's when it kind of all hit me. And I had the opportunity and the honor to take some of his ashes in an urn that his wife Heson sent to me because Marine Corps, Nacho can tell you about this. We have First Sergeant's Hill where we have in 5th Marine Regiment, we have First Sergeant's Hill where all of our crosses, we put our crosses for our fallen, for our brothers and sisters. And so I took his ashes up there and I to be honest, like I bawled like a damn baby for probably a solid 20 minutes. And it was just a big release and it was needed and it felt good. Um, and it just kind of let it go. And, beforehand, I probably would be somebody that would not release it and I would just hold it in, trying to be macho. But as I've grown older, I realized that that's not the best way to handle it. So I guess that's the best way I can answer that. I don't know if that answers it even, but
No, I think that was wonderful. I mean, I would have definitely cried for sure, but I also feel everything and I always like to joke that I feel everything in caps lock. So I have very big, very loud emotions, and I think that's not just because I'm a girl, but also because it's just who I am. All right. So Josh, did you come up with an answer? What are all the emotions that you were feeling during this whole process and how did you
Yeah, I mean, I think my answer is going to kind of be a cop out. Is that I don't think I've fully had that moment that Don had or George had or all the guys that were able to really kind of see everything to the end had because unfortunately I was busy working somewhere else in the world, so I was never able to kind of have that moment of closure for this. But I know the one moment that stands out is when our buddy Gimli, the EOD tech with the Weatherman Foundation, who took the ball across the finish line here and actually located Grady's body in the end using all of our information and stuff like that. When he sent me that match and said we've got him, and I was able to forward that to Don and George and everyone else, it was just unreal. It was so much relief.
I
Um,
literally just got the chills with
yeah,
you mentioning that again. Like,
but I
feeling?
don't think I've had the ability to close it out because I didn't get to go to Grady's ceremony. I didn't get to do all those things. So I think once I finally have the moment to do that, it'll all hit me like a bag of bricks. But for now, I'm going with the old tried and true, stick it in the back of your mind and stay busy.
Yeah, I don't think that's a cop out moment at all. We all need to have our moments of closure and, if you haven't gotten that yet, then, the day will come. Speaking of, I think Don, you mentioned it. You said it was First Sergeant Hill. Don't you and Nacho do a ruck, or I think Nacho had done a ruck up that that mountain.
yeah, Nacho went to go up it over. Not, I don't feel like it was that long ago. He was out there on some business. I think his knee started messing with him a little bit, and talked with him a little bit about that because I think he wasn't able to get all the way to the top. But I said that doesn't matter, man, because now you know what you got to work for. Like you want to do that, so now you know what you need to do. There's nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, I can't do it yet, but I'm gonna get there." Like I just got to work a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Jay, do you think that's something you would ever be interested in doing as a ruck up there?
No, I'm good with after my most recent time in Southeast Asia, I am going to hold off on any sort of hills or mountains for the foreseeable future. So I will cheer them on from the bottom, but I will not be stepping foot on an incline anytime soon.
Fair enough.
There's a back way you can drive up.
There you go. Okay, guys. There is a lot more that we can cover through this. However, Nacho and I had talked about this being at the very least, a two-part series, if not more after that. And we're running out of time. And unfortunately, we're gonna have to wrap it up. But do you guys have any last remarks, before we wrap this up in a pretty little bow and send it out into the world? And then we'll tackle like I said, at the very least, part two on the next one. Don, go ahead if you've got any lasting remarks.
No, I just want to, give my appreciation to Nacho and yourself, Sarah, for taking the time to do this with us, and Jay for being on here. I'm never going to tell you I can't thank you enough, but I know you'll get tired of it eventually, and maybe one day I'll quit. But one of these days we will get together and I'll get to shake your hand, have a beer with you or something. But I'm glad to be here. I hope I provide a little bit of insight and look forward to doing this again.
Wonderfully said. And it's just now dawning on me, Don and Jay, have you guys never actually met in person?
Nope, we have not. I was supposed to go to I was supposed to go to Grady's ceremony in Arlington, and I instead decided I wanted to go visit Taiwan during the worst earthquake they've ever experienced. So yeah, that was cool, but I didn't get to meet Don and anyone else.
I've never met Nacho yet either.
You haven't? Oh my gosh. I it's the power of the internet these days, right?
Well, I think that just explains brotherhood in itself too, though, right? Never even met
Yeah.
each other, but willing to do the things that we did and they did for us.
Yeah, I really think you have a huge point there. Is that it doesn't even matter. It's whenever the community needs us, we're going to step up and we're going to step in when we're needed, no matter what. Jay, do you have any parting remarks before we wrap this up?
Not really. It was a great time. I'd love to come back and keep talking. I can't wait to finally meet Don and everyone. Hopefully things settle down over the next couple months and I could take some time off. But we'll see how that goes.
Hey, you'll have to come up to Alaska. We'll be heading there at the end of summer. You come up for a visit.
That would be a
Yeah.
great trip, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. That would be fantastic.
All right. That wraps it up for today. Again, everybody, all of our listeners, stay tuned for part 2 at the very least, maybe a part 3. We'll see. We're going to do this in as many segments as we need to, as well as pending our esteemed guests and their availability. So, everybody, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube. Guys, again, thank you so much for sharing the incredible experiences you guys have been through and your background on Captain Grady and your connection with Brotherhood and really just putting everything very eloquently. This is it for the Grit Unleashed podcast. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.